Good afternoon. There I sat as the chair of the Board of County Commissioners, ready to take public testimony on the county's $1 billion budget. As the elected county executive, I had carefully prepared a budget to address our key goals. But only 4 people sat on the folding chairs in the vast hearing room that could have easily sat 250 people. Each one passionately testified on the same topic: coyotes in their backyard. Of course, their problem was very real to them, and they deserved an answer, but for me, it was the last straw. Our method of getting public input into our budget was not working. I decided there must be a better way, and we did things differently after that. But I was always on the lookout for better ways to engage the public. In addition to my concerns about the public hearing method, you all come down to my place. My experience as both an elected county leader and as an elected state representative had led to my increasing concern about how input to elected officials was being mediated by lobbyists who are advocating special interests, guided by simplistic polling, and influenced by activists with sophisticated political and social media skills. It was for that reason that I joined the advisory board of Oregon's Kitchen Table and made a contribution from my company's foundation. OKT combines the most up-to-date use of technology with the benefits of community organizing to get nuanced input from the public. OKT now also includes ways for people to make microloans to people who cannot tap traditional resources. And it includes ways for people to contribute and build support for community projects through public purpose crowdfunding. Just as we know that schools must tailor their approaches to the differences in the way children learn, or that businesses need to focus on market niches to sell their products, OKT is a platform for people to choose how to engage in their communities. And ultimately, I hope it will be a way to build a better relationship with elected officials. I will now turn our presentation over to Wendy Willis.
Thank you. Thank you. The great Native American poet Joy Harjo says, "The world begins at a kitchen table." She goes on, "The table has been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun." We at Oregon's Kitchen Table believe in a table that all Oregonians can squeeze around, whether we live in a city or on a farm, no matter what language we speak or what political party we belong to. It is a place, both virtually and in person, where we can discuss the day's events, settle our differences, pool our resources. All 13,625 of us, and that number grows every day. As Beverly mentioned, decision makers are fed up with the old 3 minutes at the microphone system, and the public is fed up too. Citizens, and here I mean all community members, are itching for ways to share their good ideas and skills and hard-earned dollars to benefit their own communities. They want to speak directly to decision makers without the spin of interest groups or lobbyists. Unlike the closed yes or no of the initiative system, Oregonians know there are trade-offs to be made, and they are willing to make them if they're given good information and an opportunity to weigh in. Oregonians also want a chance to say yes to what they do want in their backyard, whether they're parks or libraries or small businesses. OKT is designed to be permanent, so the table does not need to be rebuilt each time, but also fluid. It is used statewide as well as at a regional, community, and neighborhood level. It is used to garner input, conduct civic crowdfunding, and facilitate neighbor-to-neighbor microlending. It is used to organize house parties and focus groups and community gatherings. But we know there are other possible uses too. It could be used to connect Oregonians to volunteer opportunities, or to online deliberations, or public policy games, or participatory budgeting. And it is very important to us that those communities who have not felt invited to the table in the past, they have an honored seat. So we work with community-based organizations to reach out to those folks by whatever means works. Translations, paper, face-to-face, mobile phones. And here's the thing, the kitchen table is big enough for all Americans. We can use the same technology and apply the same learnings to create Salt Lake City's kitchen table, or the Bay Area's kitchen table, or Michigan's kitchen table. We can adapt the system, scoot over, and invite everyone to take a seat. It's been an honor to be here. Thank you for including us.
Thank you.
anybody have?
I have a question. So if you look at you have a platform that you say works at different levels of government, and it works for different issues, focus on different outcomes. What are the issues or outcomes that you think are the critical success points? In other words, where, focus on these types of issues and these types of situations offer the most opportunity for scaling this up and replicating it. Because you're doing a lot over a lot of different planes. Where would you focus for the most impact?
So where we started was with input into public policy issues, and so I think there's two criteria that are really important to make the kitchen table stick. And one of them is that people are weighing in on actual decisions, and so that they're decisions that are being considered by some decision-making body, that they're not in theory. And I think the other place that it shows value to public officials is when the public is forced to suffer in the same way decision makers are, so that there are trade-offs to be made. It's not just you can have everything, you want everything, but to put people in a situation where they're making trade-offs. I think those two pieces.
Could you describe an example of that?
There's a great example, actually. When we first started, we worked on the governor's 10-year plan and his budgeting. And because Oregon has an initiative system, we have all these public safety measures that involve mandatory minimums. So the stance of especially legislators was, we know how the public feels about public safety. There's no way reform's possible. That was what people believed because the public was communicating, right? And as soon as we walked people through a budgeting exercise, so gave them information, and then they helped build a budget, as soon as a price tag went on public safety, suddenly trade-offs started to happen in a way that where if you're just asked in the abstract, do you want mandatory minimums for drunk driving, the answer is yes. But if you say it costs X number of millions of dollars, people are smart, and they can, and they'll start to look at other things.
And that influenced the budgeting
It did.
decisions by
I
the
just
governor.
understand how that works. So you have a website, I guess,
That's right.
and you say, do you want mandatory minimums for drunk driving? And the answer is yes, and then immediately the cost comes up, or how does that work?
No, it's really a sort of an information push-pull, right? So you push the information out and say, this is how many people are incarcerated in the state of Oregon for nonviolent offenses. This is how much it costs. This is how much it would save if there was discretion or whatever the trade-off is, and you put it out there, and then you ask people to either set a number for the budget, or you can say, do you disagree or agree with this particular statement? So it's really, the thing about mandatory minimums came out of the initiative system. So people felt like, oh, the public is speaking to me. I know what the public is saying. But the public was only given the chance to say, yes, mandatory minimum, no mandatory minimum, without any information about cost. So it's a way to kind of nuance what people thought they'd heard from the public.
Yes, go ahead, Ed.
How do you decide who gets to come to the kitchen table?
If you have an Oregon zip code, you get to come. And you're over the age of 13. Those are the two criteria.
And I would just say that we reach out to all 13,000 people, but if necessary and requested by the elected official, we can do a demographically representative sample as a side or part of that. But the input we got was people wanted to hear from as many people as possible, and we keep adding on names. So, it'll be pretty large, and it will start being representative pretty soon. We're a small state.
Just to build off of that, so the current and growing number is over 13,000 people are a part of this. Do you find the participation rates to be correlated to statewide issues versus more local issues? Do people tend to participate in smaller groups as it pertains to certain kinds of issues that you raise? If you could just kind of take that overall number and break it down to the general participation that happens.
That's a great question. I think our main experience is people usually come into the kitchen table, become a member because they're interested in a particular project. Mm-hmm. And then they oftentimes will participate. For example, my interest is education, and then those people tend to participate in education. But they don't always only participate in education, but there's trends that way. And we're really trying to track how immigrants and people of color and historically underrepresented people participate, and to really expand what that looks like, which includes not really participating in the traditional consultation at all, maybe a focus group or an in-person discussion.
So when you say they participate in a focus group, so do you run focus groups too?
Yes, we can. We don't do it every single time. It depends on the needs of the community. Where you do a community gathering, focus group sounds a little cold, so we call it a community gathering, but so we get people in the room, and then we have people who we've trained and provided a packet to, and they then seek input on the same topics, but not in a way that's a very detailed survey.
You might mention the Portland Public Schools experience. I think that's a good example.
Yeah, that's a good example. We're just now finishing a project with Portland's Public Schools that involves 6 languages, community gatherings in multiple languages, in-person, paper, community, and really deep community organizing.
I thought the microlending was interesting. I understand its importance. It just didn't feel thematically consistent with the other 2 elements of the program. What caused you to expand into that, and how do you ensure that's not mission creep that may pull you away from your core?
I think that's I would have thought the same thing, actually, if you had not knowing the story. So Oregon, the state government and the state's biggest business organization have made reducing poverty to below 10% by 2020 a statewide goal. And so Beverly's very involved in that project. I went to tons of talks by the governor and legislators and others who were talking about structural interventions and legislative interventions. And I kept saying, but what can regular Oregonians do? Like, what can we do to participate in communities? Because that's such an ambitious goal. And so this became a way that we could, that me and my kids and my neighbors could participate in this goal to try to reduce poverty to below 10%.
You can participate because you can give money,
Or you can receive money. Either one.
but both.
Yeah.
Got it.
We have a partnership with an organization that vets small businesses to make sure they're legitimate. Then they can go onto the kitchen table, and we can push it out to our 13,000 people and say, do you want to help these people get off the ground because they can't get traditional resources?
So that's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting.
That's so it's sort of like open source funding
Yeah.
of this effort.
There are zero interest loans, so they come back to the contributor with a very high repayment rate, I will add.
That's very, very exciting.
So,
Well, thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.